She looked totally mortified. She looked at me and said, "Here in Iceland, we are very honest people." And I realized that, oh, I should have not said that. Then I started to work as a negotiator. I would approach every meeting with a goal to win. I had to learn a hard way to accept those no's and understand that not every meeting will finish with a deal and not every negotiation will be possible to win. If I have a sense that person is lying, I will ask another set of calibrated questions. In reality, it would be exactly the same questions, but, framed a bit differently.
If a young hotel professional is listening right now, what skills should they start practicing today to become a strong negotiator in the future?
There is a golden negotiation rule. They call it 80-20. 80% of your time you're listening and 20% you're talking.
What is the most asked question by hoteliers when they are at negotiation table?
How much business can you give us? That's a very, I would say, I answered straight away. I didn't even need to think.
If you could give the hoteliers maybe 3 easy steps that they could use right away before the next negotiation, what would those 3 steps?
So first of all, what we appreciate if hotels send us.
Our guest today is Tatjana Kniazeva, a hospitality negotiator with over 2 decades of experience working across 12 countries. After facing burnout and learning to rebuild balance in her life, Tatjana made it her mission to teach others that negotiation isn't about pressure or power. It's about confidence, empathy, and creating win-win relationships that last.
What's up, hospitality? If you think negotiation is about price, only about price, you are leaving value on the table. Today, we will show you how hotels can win without cutting rates. Our guest today is Tatjana Kniazeva, a negotiator who has spent more than 20 years in international hospitality. Her journey started with big wins, leading negotiations across 12 countries, but it hasn't always been easy. After years of constant travel and balancing her corporate role in personal projects, Tatjana faced burnout and had to renegotiate with the toughest counterpart of all, herself. Out of that struggle came a mission to show that negotiation doesn't have to be stressful or intimidating, but a skill that builds trust, balance, and lasting partnerships. Today, she is here to share how hoteliers can approach negotiation with confidence and heart. Tatjana, welcome to the show.
Hi, Mauricio. Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure to have you here. You've been in the 50 Shades of Hospitality, and it was such a great chat with Crystal Kevin there. I really enjoyed listening to you and your frameworks, and I couldn't wait to have you here to speak to you too. And you joined hospitality quite some time ago. So how did hospitality came into your life?
I'm originally from Lithuania, and when I was studying in university, I won a competition from the biggest tour operator in Lithuania, and I went to work to Mallorca with VIP clients as a tour representative. So that was my first job. I was very young. I had to meet clients in the hotel, solve their problems, also accompany them as a translator on sightseeing. And then later, during my master studies, I worked in a Lithuanian tour operator and traveled with groups to Poland, Slovakia, Austria. And now I'm in London and working for a Japanese wholesale company.
And so you've worked across many countries and doing hotel negotiations. And what first you brought into the negotiation with hotels?
It's funny because I always say, be careful what you say. And then I was in a second year of university. My colleagues asked what I would like to do after I finish university. And I said, I would like to travel the world, stay in a nice hotels and negotiate. And that's exactly what I'm doing now. But Then I came to London to improve my English. My first job was in Italian tour operator, and my boss was very temperamental, and we worked in an open space. And sometimes when he would get angry, he would throw files, and one day the keyboard flew above
Oh
my
my
head.
God.
And I decided, well, that's enough. I have to look for another job. That was in 2004. And at that time, you still would have ads in the newspapers. So I looked at the newspaper, and there was an advertisement for a job called hotel negotiator. I applied, and that's how I got into negotiating and into hospitality.
Shit. And why was it so interesting to be part of hotel negotiate?
I think for me, negotiation is always about challenge. I come from the sports background, and I always liked challenging conversations. But on top of that, I always liked to win, which in the beginning of my career, I would say didn't serve me as well. And I had quite a lot of failures.
So early on in your career, you just said like you're competitive, trying to win that negotiation instead of participating maybe in a negotiation. So what was the hardest negotiation lesson you had to learn, the tough one?
So in the beginning, then I started to work as a negotiator. I would approach every meeting with a goal to win. I would go to that meeting with literally achievement, sign that deal. And for me, if people would tell me no, I would just inside what do you mean no? I will be quite pushy. So I had to learn a hard way to accept those no's and understand that not every meeting will finish with a deal, and not every negotiation will be possible to win.
It's so interesting how you say that in the beginning you struggle to accept the no's. When I was reading that Chris Voss book, Never Split the Difference, and he says that a negotiation always starts with a no, because until someone says no, there's no negotiation to start.
Exactly.
And if you look back at your personal experiences, and how did it shape your to negotiation today?
So in the beginning, I worked mostly with Eastern European countries, and people there are quite direct, straightforward, so am I. But in 2012, Portugal came into my region, and that changed completely. So I went to Portugal, and I continued, their straightforward approach, and people are very different there. So I start noticing that during the meetings, they are quite tense, or after a year, they will send another person to meet me. And then later, a few years after I started working, they told me that they were a bit scared of me. And they gave me names such as a Russian military lady, Stalin in a skirt. And I thought, well, I don't really want to intimidate people. So I started observing my colleagues at work, and I realized that negotiations can be different. And during pandemic, I also went to Harvard Business School to study negotiation mastery. And that's where I saw that empathy and really genuine understanding of what other part needs is more important than just winning all the time.
And you just mentioned from moving regions was that spark of culture. How important is culture when you get to a negotiation?
I think you have to understand that every culture is very different. Let's say if you go to Japan, and normally they don't say no. They will accept things and they will just say yes, yes. But it doesn't mean that they agree with you. And I have a funny story that I started to work with Iceland, and that was back in 2006. And first time I visited that country, the lady was a bit late to the meeting. She came, apologized, and said, well, sorry, I had to go to my boss and record the distance I cycled, because there is a competition in Reykjavik. And I was lightheartedly said, well, you could have tell him you cycled double, the distance. She looked totally mortified. She looked at me and said, here in Iceland, we are very honest people. And I realized that, I should have not said that. So what seemed to me a very light joke in certain countries could be not accepted as such.
How important it is to understand how people behave, right? And If we think about hoteliers, and like many of them think that negotiation, I think that's not hoteliers, people in general think that negotiation are stressful, are intimidating. You don't really know what you're going to face until you face. And from your experience, what is the number one mistake hoteliers make when negotiating deals? Sorry to interrupt. If you're enjoying the show and if you are learning something new today, please consider following the show, subscribe to our channel, or leave us a review. It helps us to help more people through the podcast, and it would mean the world to us. Thank you for listening, and we're back on the chat.
It's a very good question because over 20 years, I see one mistake which happens again and again, especially now with young generation when they come to hotels. Then city or country goes on demand and it's has a very high peak. Everybody wants to go there. It's very important to understand that situation in hospitality changes. And maybe after a few years, they will need you. So very often hoteliers shut the door and say, I don't need you. I'm not interesting. We are doing great. But then after 2, 3, 4 years, they come and knock on your door. And then you tell them, I'm sorry, but I already found an alternative because you didn't want to work with me. But now I have other partners to support. So it's very important not to shut the door because I believe regardless how popular destination is, we always can find those gaps where we can help each other.
Negotiation is not only about money, isn't it?
Exactly.
So if we're talking about this, what are some non-financial things hotels can offer or ask that often makes a deal stronger?
I totally agree that it's not all the time about money. Very often, in hospitality is a bit about relationship, about, building trust, about building with those long-term relationships. So first of all, hotels can offer some tailor-made services. For example, if they have a lot of Asian groups, they can offer Asian breakfast, some items which clients used to in their country, or Indian dinners if they have Indian groups. So secondly, they can look at some flexible conditions, cancellation conditions, payment conditions, more favorable, lack of blackouts, not to close, your allotment, more allotment, shorter release. Also, we can look at some parking fees, which are quite expensive in certain countries. So they can offer for individual travelers free parking, or even for buses, free parking. That will attract more groups or more individual travelers to your hotels. And of course, as a tour operators, we also can help hotels with marketing materials to publish them in our brochures, in our newsletters, and to push to certain sales markets that particular hotel because of those benefits.
What is the most asked question by hoteliers when they are at negotiation table?
How much business can you give us? That's a very, I would say, I answered straight away. I didn't even need to think. The first thing, give me the figures. How much can you produce? That is the first question they would ask you.
Does it make you feel when you get that question to starting a relationship with someone and the first question is straight away how much money you can give to me? How does it make you feel as a negotiation at the table?
I'm used to it. Maybe if that would be 10 years ago, 20 years, I would answer differently. But at the moment, I am ready to any questions hotels will ask me. So then that's the discussion starts. So I would ask, what kind of business do you want? Are you more interested in groups or individual travelers? Which countries you are interested? And then that brings us to the point, what is important in negotiations is to ask open-ended questions. I call them calibrated questions because I don't know what hotel wants. Maybe they want clients from Brazil and they don't work with Brazil. Or maybe they are really interested in clients from Asia and that's where I can help them. So first, I need to understand the need of hotel to answer his questions. So I would say I will never answer straight away that question.
And when you're sitting down with hoteliers, who are the hardest to negotiate with? Men or women?
I don't have a stereotype. It's interesting. I get asked that question quite a lot. And I dig into that. And there are even researches done by Carter, which shows that there is no difference. And it all depends on your status, on your cultural, on your upbringing, also which country you're from. So I would say I personally, in my career, had very tough negotiation with women, and as well with the men. So I can't say that one or another tougher.
That's good. It's very good to know. And if you could give like the hoteliers maybe 3 easy steps that they could use right away before the next negotiation, whether it's with suppliers, partners, or even the staff, what would those 3 steps?
So first of all, what we always appreciate if hotels send us agenda of a meeting, at least to know what they expect, what they want from us. Maybe I need to prepare something, maybe some analysis, some statistics. So that helps a lot. And it actually saves time, my time and hotelier's time. So first I would say, if you can, please send agenda before the meeting. Second thing, it's to know your BATNA. So this is like a term of negotiation, best alternative to negotiated agreement, or in simple words, have a plan B. You cannot go to any negotiation with just, one plan that you want that deal and that's it, because your opponent will feel that and that will be your weakness. So you have to have a plan B. And third one is important to have your maximum and minimum goals set. So every time you go to negotiation, keep it in front of you. Sometimes to new negotiators, young ones, I say, please write it on a paper and keep it in front of you, because then discussion is going somewhere else or it becomes heated. That is your focus. Just look why you are here. What is your goal? Why did you come to this meeting?
Awesome 3 steps. Thank you. I'm even taking notes myself here because it's very, very good advice there. And if we would put that skills in action, not only when we're negotiating value, but also negotiating the interpersonal relationships. In that podcast, in the 50 Shades of Hospitality, you often say that listening is more important than speaking. How can a hotel manager put that into practice during a meeting?
There is a golden negotiation rule. They call it 80-20. 80% of your time you're listening and 20% you're talking. But then you're talking, it's very important to talk through questions. What I mentioned before, ask open-ended questions, because that is your anchor. Whatever people answering you, use that information for further negotiations. So, and also pause, listen to other people, because it's very, very important. And try to keep it, I call this technique ping pong, like not a monologue, because very often when people try to convince you, they talk and talk and talk, and they don't even ask you a question, what do you need? What do you want from that meeting? So try to keep dialogue and not a monologue.
And I often fall into that trap of the monologue when emotions are involved, right?
Yes.
When I get emotional or too excited, or I feel afraid, or I feel threatened by the other side, I get a little bit too emotional. How can one control that emotion and keep the negotiation on the table with the strategy that we set?
So one thing which I mentioned already, it's your goal, to remember why you're here. And then you get emotional, just pause and think, what I want to say next, would that bring me closer to my goal, or actually it would put me, 2 steps back? So that is important. Second thing, there is a technique in negotiation called the balcony. So you can quickly put yourself on a balcony and look from the side, from above to yourself and opponent, and see, is that the picture you want to see from the balcony, or you can quickly readjust. And then, of course, there are a lot of, kind of other methods, which you can anchor. Sometimes you can have like a bracelet, and every time you feel that you're getting emotional, just do like this, and that reaction will put you back to the conversation. This is just few. tricks which you can do.
That's awesome. So for someone that's not watching this podcast and just listening,
Yeah.
Tatjana just pull her bracelet here and pull herself to pitch her back to remind her of the emotions here. And as we're talking about internal emotions, right? You have an episode of a burnout where you had to basically sit down and talk to yourself and renegotiate what you need. How was that experience, and how people can navigate when they are coming to that phase in their life?
Normally, I believe that you have to do what you like. And I love what I'm doing. And I'm very passionate about negotiation. I'm very passionate about my work and about my team. And I thought that when you do what you love, you cannot get burned. But sometimes when you do too much of what you like, that is also not good. So I'm a very fast person, and I would probably, open my computer, sit, and wouldn't do any breaks, wouldn't think about my body, wouldn't think about sport. So I think it's very important to try to find that balance and not just do what you love, but also to care about your mindfulness, about your body, eat well, go for walks, sleep well. I mean, this is very simple things, but not all the time we follow those.
Do you still practice those?
I try to. There are, periods that I'm better and periods that I'm worse.
I believe that we all go through cycles, right? I started meditating every day, at least 10 minutes in the beginning of the day. And
Yeah.
I always struggled to understand what meditation was until I understood that it's basically, let it go wide and then remind yourself that you are here to breathe. And that training has helped a lot to control a little bit of emotions.
Mm-hmm.
But it's that practice, right, of giving yourself time to look after yourself. I think that's well done.
I think it's also routine. You have to be very disciplined. So then I had a burnout. I understood I need to change my life. And I was very good for several months. In fact, maybe half a year. I was following routine. I was doing yoga. I was doing walks. Went to massage, physiotherapy. So I added to my life a lot of care for myself. But then suddenly you're good. You think, oh, I'm fine. I can carry on. So it's important, to stop and remind yourself that you need to care about your body as well.
And hospitality is well known by being an industry where people burn out, right? Because we're all passionate about it, but also the nature of the industry, the hours of the industry, the demand of the industry end up taking most of people. But there is one thing that a lot of managers mention, that is the relationship with hotel owners and how hard it is to understand what they need from what the owners demand and how to engage that with the staff. So how can hotel leaders use negotiation skills inside the hotel with both the staff and the owners?
I think, when we say I need, I want, that's where our negotiation is starting. So it doesn't matter if it's a hotel or if it's a different organization. It's very important to make this ecosystem comfortable and ecological, I would say, where it's in the morning when you wake up, you want to go to work. So this is about, first of all, creating values, mission, and culture of a company where people want to come and to communicate with other people. So I think this is a core thing to understand, because if you have a toxic boss or toxic colleagues, rude colleagues, sooner or later, first of all, you will leave that company, or that will affect also your mental health. You can probably have a burnout, you can have a depression. So it's very important for managers to understand that if people are happy, they will stay. So retention of your staff also will be much higher.
And when the owners are the ones saying, either you do it or you get fired.
Do you mean either if they are like putting you ultimatum, like blackmailing you? Well, for me,
I wouldn't even, it's a blackmail. Ultimatum probably is the word, but it's a threat, right? They threaten you to either do or you're out of the company.
So I would say for me, that would be a first call to say, to myself, do I really want to work in that company? If person is saying that, I will not accept it as a threat, maybe. I will try to talk into more constructive discussion. I would actually try to show why maybe I cannot do it now, or I have other priorities. And if my manager can tell me which would be the priority, I can do that, but I cannot do XYZ. So it's always a discussion. So very often people get really threatened or stressed with such a, wording. So it's very important to put it aside and try to go into normal discussion.
Use the bracelet. Take the emotion out. And if we think a little bit about future, right? We are in I keep repeating this. It's even getting boring already for me, but we are in a time now that we cannot predict the next 2-3 years, what's going to happen, not only in the industry, but with society in general. We are so such a fantastic and different time in life, right? As humans, everything changes super fast. And with this technology and the growing of AI in hospitality in general, do you think negotiation will change in the next few years?
Yes and no. So let's start with a yes. There are a lot of tools and a lot of now universities, one of them from Harvard, school, they have like initiatives of building AI negotiation assistants. And I'm involved in one of the projects, and I'm very positive. And on that side, I see it as a helper, because very often negotiation perceived as a very stressful and fearful process. So AI tools such assistant can help you actually to prepare for negotiation, to simulate negotiations, to find more arguments, how to deal with objections. So this is a good part. But on other hand, negotiation will always remain human, because at the end of the day, you are the one who is going and meeting person. So at the end of the day, whatever you learned from that assistant, you have to apply in practice. And very often it could go not according to the script.
And if the assistant is wearable, is that a positive thing for a negotiation, that you have an assistant whispering in your ear what steps to take next? Or is it degrading for negotiation?
I think I still believe that in negotiation, you need to be curious and switch on your critical thinking. So personally, for me, I think it would disturb me, because I like the whole process and I like this unexpected maybe answers. But it depends again on the personality. If you're just starting to do negotiations, maybe it will help. But then there is an ethical kind of principle. How would other side feel? And if both of us have something in our ear, it's stopped becoming human. It's not human anymore, because then we can remove it, put in front of each other and just, watch it as a movie and see what happens.
It's so interesting you say that. I don't know if you follow news lately. Muse, the PMS, Muse, the hospitality PMS. So they get so many job applications that the step that they put now, the first one is after you get approved, your CV get approved, you have an interview with an AI recruiter. Okay. So it's an AI recruiting screening. So you speak, but it's an AI recruiter that will make that interview, asking the questions, right? And then they can select from there. It's one phase of the interview. Then you go to the next phase to speak to a human. And then the question I asked Mattia, the CEO of the company, was, and if a smart candidate put their digital twin to take the AI interview, is that a positive thing or a negative thing, right? And he said that was positive, because it's the genuinity, the creativity of overcoming a challenge. It's probably a good candidate for them. But for me, in the long term, then it completes, if everyone does that, so why do you have that AI agent right now? So in the end of the thing, the long term could be problem. And that I love this brainstorm about the future, because we get very curious of what can happen. If a young hotel professional is listening right now, what skills should they start practicing today to become a strong negotiator in the future?
It's a great question. Because, of course, I want more people to look into negotiation with a smile rather than be scared of it. So first of all is empathy. So it's very important when you go to the meeting to understand other person's position. Very often we go to negotiation with just our set, mind, and we think this is right, just what I think this is right. But you have to understand other person's perspective, and empathy helps with that. So secondly is resilience, because not every negotiation will finish with a yes. You might need another meeting or maybe another company or, another deal. So this is important to bounce back and be prepared for that. So third thing is a critical thinking. So always ask, is that true? Is it really, what person is saying has value and true value? Then it's curiosity. You have to be curious. You have to be curious genuinely about other person, about the company, and that can be achieved with asking a lot of open-ended questions. And of course, for me, the most, I would say, important is this feeling, a sense of adventure. So every time you go to negotiation, be open-minded. Don't put, in your mind perception that that person is really tough or this company is very big. Just go with open mind and say, let's see what will come out of that. That would really help.
Great set of skills. And I have a question about the critical thinking. So when you ask yourself, is this true? Is this person saying a true fact here? How do you challenge that, or you don't?
If I have a sense that person is lying, I will ask another set of calibrated questions. In reality, it would be exactly the same questions, but, framed a bit differently. And very often I will look how person behave, because we have like a central line, our normal line, like we are talking with you now, and I'm seated this way. But if you will ask me something and I'm uncomfortable or I'm lying, my baseline will change. I will go like this, or I will start touching my face. Literally, something will change in me, and I will observe that in other person. So, okay, that has changed. Then I ask another question and I again see that person is uncomfortable. So that will make me think, okay, person is probably lying. In few occasions, I would say, but this is not true. And that will be, the really end question, because person would say, so reaction also would show. Or if I cannot do that during a meeting, I might take a pause and say, okay, I'll think about it and I'll come back to you tomorrow or in a week's time. And then I go back and I will check if that data or whatever that person told me, if that is true.
All right. So if you know it's not true, you would expose.
I would, yes.
Yeah.
I like to challenge people as well.
That's awesome. Do you use any type of framework to help people to be prepared for a negotiation?
Yes, there is a framework how we prepare for negotiations. So we start with a goal. So this is your first and most important. So that's how you start. So secondly, you see if we talk about hotels, how the market, how the city is performing, what are the competitors. So we really study quite well who is in front of us, either person or the company. Third thing, we know already objections. So we prepare how do we handle those objections. And very important for every objection to have at least 3 arguments, because very often people go around and around and around and repeating the same thing. This is very annoying. So for every objection, have 3 arguments and prepare those. Then look at open-ended questions. I normally, especially for young negotiators who are just starting, I tell them, write a list of open-ended questions, have it in front of you, because then you're nervous, or if conversation going somewhere else, just, look at those questions. Then very important is to prepare emotionally as well. So how do you want to feel during the negotiation? What do you want to achieve? Why you want to achieve that? So emotional preparation is also very, very important. And then know your partner. So have plan B, plan C before you go to the meeting.
That's awesome. I'm so excited about this conversation today, Tatjana. Thank you so much. Okay, if hoteliers remember just one thing for our conversation today, what would that be?
Don't get disencouraged with no. With no, your negotiation only starting, and very often that no will lead you to the door with a yes.
Awesome message. Tatjana, how can our audience get in touch with you? connect with you and talk more about negotiation skills?
I'm available on LinkedIn, so you can send me a connect message, and I'll be very happy to connect with you.
So, Tatjana, thank you so much. I really appreciate this conversation. It was very, very instructional. I learned a lot today. And thank you so much for accepting this invitation to talk to us here.
Thank you, Mauricio, for great questions. I really enjoyed our chat, and I hope that the new generation will not be so scared of negotiations and will go with open mind.
Shilarain, that was it. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.